Hey folks, it is Sunday, February 13th. The time is just after 1:30 p.m. and the temperature right now is around minus 11 degrees Celsius. And I think with the wind chill, it's around minus 14. And there's a look to the east towards the CN Tower in the downtown core. And that was the 509 Harborfront streetcar I just got off. And this streetcar loop here is at the western terminus of that line. And given that today is Super Bowl Sunday, I thought I'd go for a walk starting from one stadium that currently houses professional football here, and that would be BMO Field. And I'll walk east through the Exhibition Place grounds here and onto the Bentway and then through City Place, and I'll finish up at the Toronto SkyDome. And that's the stadium that used to house the Toronto Argos of the CFL, as well as I think a total of 5 Buffalo Bills games between 2008 and 2013. And there's the horse building on the left. So these are the Exhibition Place grounds, and straight ahead is BMO Field. That's currently a national soccer stadium, as well as home to the Toronto FC of Major League Soccer and the Toronto Argonauts of the Canadian Football League. And very close to the site where BMO Field is used to be Exhibition Place, or rather Exhibition Stadium. And that was home to the Toronto Argos, I think dating back to the late 1960s. And then when the Blue Jays joined Major League Baseball in 1977, it was also home to them. And both teams played there until 1989 when the Toronto SkyDome opened. So we're just going to go take a quick peek into the stadium. And this stadium opened in 2007. And it's been renovated a few times since. And I think the current capacity is around 30,000. I've got my arm stuck through the gates here. That's really the best view I can get. Hopefully I don't drop my camera. And I think this section here on the left, the upper deck there was a recent addition along with the canopy. It used to be you could see the skyline, I think, sitting on one side. Although the stadium's been rather quiet over the past few years. And there still is a restriction of just 500 fans per game at these large stadium facilities in Canada, or rather Ontario. I think people are eagerly awaiting that to be lifted. So these grounds here are home to the Canadian National Exhibition. And that's a large fair that runs over the last 2 weeks of the summer leading up to Labor Day. That was founded back in 1879. And right around this spot, there used to be a roller coaster called the Flyer. That operated from the early 50s for about 39 years. It was a permanent wooden roller coaster. It wasn't very long. And I think there's a few videos on YouTube where you can see what that was like. This is where the midway would typically be for the CNE. So there'd be a lot of temporary rides set up just to the south of here. The old Alpine Way used to run overhead here. There's a newer one they build that is much, much smaller and less impressive just to the south of here. And I appear to be aimlessly wandering through a parking lot right now. There's the main entrance to the horse building. And to the south of here, at the old Ontario Place grounds, is the Budweiser stage, formerly known as the Molson Amphitheater. So there's quite a few large venues around here, including the Coca-Cola Coliseum just straight ahead, formerly the Ricoh Coliseum. And that is home to the Toronto Marlies of the AHL. I think it seats a little under 10,000 people. But it's pretty much the only affordable way you can see professional hockey in the city. I've seen a few games there. It's pretty fun. And there's the Enercare Center. And a look back at BMO Field. And just off in that direction, there used to be a Schwarzkopf roller coaster called Doppel Looping. It was one of my favorite parts of the CNE, but that disappeared some time ago when they switched away from using Conklin as their rides provider. And again, that fair would just run for the last 2 weeks of summer. And I think it's the biggest fair of its kind in North America, with well over 1 million people in attendance annually. So I'm going to turn left here and head over to the Prince's Gates. And if you're a fan of motor racing or Indy, you might be familiar with the stretch coming up here. This building on the left kind of gives a rather iconic look, or is part of an iconic view of the Toronto Indy. As it races down this street here. I think it's currently the Toronto Honda Indy. For the longest time growing up, it was the Molson Indy. And I think it's the second longest street course in the entire Indy circuit. I remember growing up, my parents were always fans of that race and the Indy series in general. There was usually a few top Canadian drivers, such as Jacques Villeneuve and Paul Tracy. I think there was a Canadian driver, Greg Moore, who tragically lost his life in a race And there is what I think is one of the ugliest buildings I've ever seen. That is Hotel X. We'll go get a closer look. During the first year of the pandemic, the NHL used it as one of its bubbles where a number of teams stayed and the players couldn't really leave. This part's kind of cool, but the actual hotel behind it, I have no idea how that thing got approved. According to this plaque here, thousands of Ukrainians and other Europeans were needlessly imprisoned as enemy aliens during Canada's national internment operations between 1914 and 1920. So those would be the Stanley Barracks off in the distance. But this hotel opened, I think, in 2018. And given that it's in such a prominent site, it's the only high-rise anywhere around here. You think they'd want something that's kind of iconic, or at least not an eyesore sticking up, but for some reason this is what we got. Well, that Starbucks is open. There's a plane flying overhead that probably took off recently from Pearson Airport, and there's a helicopter overhead as well. And there is the Beanfield Center. I think one year back, might have been the early 90s, that they held a rather extravagant exhibit there for the country of Saudi Arabia during the exhibition. There's quite a few rather nice older structures like this in the CNE grounds. And this structure coming up is the Prince's Gates. Not the Princess Gates, but the Prince's Gates. And it was named such after, I think, the Prince of Wales and the Duke of Kent. It was built in 1927. And it's made of cement and stone. Yes, I remembered that from Wikipedia. I was looking things up on the streetcar ride over, although I'm pretty sure I've came across that info before. It just didn't really stick in my memory. So that's the so-called grand entrance to the Canadian National Exhibition. And that leads out to Strachan Avenue. And just to the south is Lakeshore Boulevard. And there you'll find Coronation Park in Lake Ontario. So here's Strachan. I'm just going to head north here for a few blocks, and then I'll pop into the Bentway. And I think these helicopters are out on protester watch. I don't think there's really anything going on today. And there's a 24-hour respite site. So the Super Bowl tonight is between the Bengals and the Rams. I kind of want to see the Bengals win. I think it'll be a bit of a feel-good story. Although it'd be nice to see Matt Stafford get a win as well. And the closest NFL team to Toronto are the Buffalo Bills. So this is Fleet Street. There's an old armory there. We'll be walking by Fort York, an old military base. And that's where the streetcar I took popped into the exhibition grounds. I'm not sure if the Buffalo Bills have solidified their future home yet, but I think they've only got a year lease left on their current stadium. And their new stadium won't be ready for a few years. So I think under the current circumstances, I might be out of date on this. But I think they might be homeless for a year. And it's rumored that Toronto might be where they find a temporary home, or possibly Penn State. Obviously, I think it would be pretty cool if they came here and played. The SkyDome isn't quite big enough to be a full-time NFL stadium, but it certainly could house a team on a temporary basis. That is the building where I'm heading to. And welcome to the Bentway. That's the Gardner Expressway, the main east-west highway that runs along the south end of the city, that the Bentway sits underneath. And this is a large public space that runs underneath the Gardner, of course. And it opened, I think, in 2018 after being proposed in 2015. There's a bridge you could take, the Garrison Crossing. It'll lead you up to Stanley Park. So I'll be walking by an outdoor skating trail. I think it'll be open for just another week. I think it closes on February 21st. And I remember last year coming by here and thinking that it would close rather prematurely, at least relative to the other skating rinks in the city. And last year it was much harder to get a spot. You basically had to survive the Hunger Games and get a reservation online. There are some rather strict capacity limits, even on an outdoor skating surface. This entrance here will take you into Fort York. The Fort York National Historic Site. That's an old 19th century military site. And it originally dates back to the 1700s. That was used as a fort by the Canadian and the British forces to defend Toronto Harbor from invading American forces. There seems to be some kind of an announcement. No, it's not my microphone. I cannot understand a word she is saying.
Please stand well back from the edge of the ice if you have small children, eyes on them. We'll be with you very shortly, and thank you once again for wearing your masks over your noses, mouths and chins. We really appreciate that, helping everybody out. Thanks very much. We'll be with you very, very shortly.
Wasn't that fun there? Taking a break just as I got here. I actually came here last year to record it, and the same thing happened. Right when I got here, it was break time. We'll get a closer look at the ice quickly here. It's a pretty neat configuration they have. But that ice does look like it could use a Zamboni. Oh well, good thing I didn't make that the focal point of this video. So let's carry on walking eastward here, and this is Fort York Boulevard. So this will take us into the City Place neighborhood, which spans from Bathurst Street coming up, and that runs east over to where the SkyDome is, pretty much, where I'll be finishing this walk. And you could head into the Fort York Historic Site, heading up that way as well. And there is June Colwood Park, which is fenced off. And hopefully it's being rehabilitated, because that takes my vote for easily one of the ugliest and most dilapidated parks in the city. And the Bentway juts off underneath the Gardner in that direction. So we'll be saying goodbye to the Bentway. And hello to 3 slow walking people taking up the entire width of the sidewalk here. Alright, so that wasn't so bad. There's the look over into Fort York. And these condos straight ahead are part of City Place. And you can see the side of the SkyDome, which is where I'm headed. It's that white domed roof. But you also get a pretty good view of the CN Tower walking in this direction along Fort York Boulevard here. And this is Bathurst Street, so I'll be crossing over into downtown. It looks like I'm not going to make the light. There's an old 8-inch shell gun. So to the south of here is Lakeshore Boulevard and Queens Quay West. And there goes a 511 Bathurst streetcar. And you could catch that from the exhibition loop where I started. And that'll run north up to Bathurst Station. And then north from Bathurst Station, you'll have to take a bus if you want to continue on in that direction. Rolling right turn right through a red light. Good job. There's a sign for Concord Attics, the developers of City Place here. And City Place itself is a rather large planned neighborhood. I think it might be the largest of its kind in Canada, actually. And just to the north of here are the former CN Rail land, or I guess it still is part of the CN Rail yard, but they've rolled back the use of it. And for a brief period, just to the north of here, there was even a golf driving range. And the first towers in this development were completed back in 2003, down along Front Street West. And the same developer has another very large-scale development similar to this going on Shepherd Avenue East now. right around Bazarian Station between Shepherd Avenue East and Highway 401. And this here is Dan Lucky Way. And there's a large park here on the right. And I think what's known as the Gene Lum Public School just beyond it. Beyond it? Behind it? To the east of it? This is known as Canoe Landing. There's an off-leash dog park just behind this public art, I guess you could call it. There's one of the signature design features of City Place, that sky bridge between those two towers. I think that might be where the event and party space is for those buildings. Which frankly are kind of a scam in a lot of condos. If you want to use those spaces, you often have to leave a deposit and reserve them. I think if you have a group more than 5 people going in, which of course you would, you have to go buy separate event insurance. At least a lot of condos have those rules. And the next major street coming up is Spadina Avenue. When I cross that, Fort York Boulevard turns into Bremner Boulevard. That'll take me down in front of the SkyDome, where I think I'll end this video. I guess I could extend it a bit further and go all the way to Scotiabank Arena, and then it would have covered all the major sports venues in the city. But I kind of feel like going and getting some lunch. This here is Brunel Courts. There's a Fox in the Fiddle and the Canoe Landing Community Rec Center. So the rail yards are just to the north of here. This is one of the last pieces of the City Place development to go up. Let's look north up Spadina. And that is the Toronto SkyDome straight ahead, which opened in 1989. And it was the first fully retractable roof of its kind. The usually broken roof in Montreal at the Olympic Stadium opened a little earlier, or it was functioning earlier, but it covered a much smaller surface. And like I said, it was usually broken. And it was more of a canvas canopy. It wasn't a hard roof like this. I have no idea why the walk signal didn't flip there. So this was built in 1989 to the tune of $500 million, and it got the name SkyDome from a Name the Dome contest. It was a public contest, and the lady who named it won tickets for life to every event at the venue. And later in the 2000s, it was purchased by an evil corporation for a fraction of what the public paid for it. And they defaced it with what I think is one of the stupidest names of all time for a baseball stadium. And this is Navy Wharf. I had a friend who lived in this building right here. Yes, that's how you make a right turn. Roll right over the crossing on a red light and ignore the pedestrian. Good job. Sorry, it's so cold. I'm kind of tripping over some of my words. But they've since put in some renovations to make it a bit more baseball specific. I think there's $200 million more of renovations going in. There was a debate between upgrading the stadium even more or just replacing it, and I think they chose the financially more affordable option. I was there at the third game ever where it started to rain and they had to close the roof. In some sections they had to vacate because there was a leak in the roof. And that move was done mid-season, as earlier that year we went to a few games at Exhibition Stadium. I also remember going there many times for games during the Blue Jays playoff run not too long ago. Back during the glory days of the Alex Anthopoulos era. It looks like the police have a mini command center set up here. It's probably a response to the potential protesting. So it was built as the last of the multi-purpose venues, so it's kind of a dinosaur in that sense, which is a bit of a shame, because right after the SkyDome opened, well, New Comiskey Park opened in Chicago. And that was kind of done in a modern style, but after that, Camden Yards opened, and the whole baseball-specific retro craze kicked in. And we never saw another baseball stadium like it. Well, we did see one far worse open, Tropicana Field in Tampa Bay. It has to be one of the worst stadiums of all time. How do you build a baseball stadium where the roof comes into play regularly? And there is the South Court District straight ahead. And going back to the name, I think the word center to describe a stadium that's now primarily used for baseball is kind of a dumb name. They could have called it field or stadium, or their corporate name followed by SkyDome. I think that would have had a lot of goodwill with the public. But nope, they called it center. I know that certainly conjures up images of boys playing baseball when I think of the word center. There's the rec room right across the street. It's a large Dave and Buster style arcade and bar. And that's connected to the Roundhouse. And across the street from that is Ripley's Aquarium. And next to that is the CN Tower. And the Blue Jays actually have a pretty damn good history for a team that's only been around since 1977. They were quite dominant throughout the mid-80s to late 80s, and through the early 90s. And despite all the great players, George Bell, Jimmy Key, Dave Stieb, Joe Carter, for some reason there's a statue of this guy here, which makes no sense. Someone once threatened online to throw that statue into the lake, and he was visited by the police. And there you can see down Bremner Boulevard is the Scotiabank Arena, formerly the Air Canada Centre. There's the Roundhouse across the street. So what I think I'll do is I'll just go up and finish this one next to the rail tracks. I'll just walk around this facility, which, since this is a Super Bowl themed walk, the Buffalo Bills did play here, I think from 2008 to 2013, in a series of preseason and regular season games. And the Toronto Argos used to play there. I remember going to see Doug Flutie play. I had season tickets during that era. Although, regrettably, I've never been to a Grey Cup game, which are apparently a lot of fun. Well, it's good to see the CN Tower is operating, at least with some capacity. Thank you. Caution, falling ice. And Front Street West is just to the south of here. There's a look at the rail corridor. And a look east towards Union Station. And on that note, I hope you enjoyed this walk. Starting at Exhibition Place by BMO Field, walking east, making my way through the Bentway and the City Place neighborhood to the Toronto SkyDome. Don't believe what the sign on the building says. SkyDome is the name. If you wish to support the channel, there are links to my Instagram and Patreon in the description. As well as I have a Instagram account at, did I say Instagram already? I can't even remember what I said. Patreon and YouTube channel membership in the description. And I have an Instagram account at Johnny Strides. All right, thank you for watching. Stay warm, stay safe, and I will catch you on the next one.